Thank you all for coming along. So yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge MLA as well, and also our partners in this project. It is a fairly significant investment, and very much a national project as well. So I guess just right up front, I mean, defining management targets for crossbred ewes, it is a work in progress, as Richard may have said. We've got, over a long period of time, we've got very well defined targets for merinos that many of you would have come across through your experiences in lifetime ewe management, I'm sure. But they've been lacking in maternals, which is the idea of this project. Just to I guess, the overview, importance of reproduction for maternals and where are the opportunities in weaning rates, just briefly, and Jason mentioned some of that this morning. Industry feedback on what the optimum guidelines are and what are the needs for this project, what's missing. As part of the process to get MLA funding, we had to go to industry and just make sure we weren't making things up, that there was a genuine need, like we felt, for this project. And then I'll spend most of my time going through where we're at in terms of the project itself and what we know to date. You're not going to walk out of here with robust guidelines. That's not the idea of it. We're 1 year into a big project, but hopefully you'll pick up a few things and certainly whet your appetite to keep your eyes open for information as it does start to flow in the next 12 months or so. Jason showed you this one. He mentioned the big shift to maternal ewes, massive in the last 5 years, and yet we get them and then we're not doing too much with them. Weaning rates are not changing despite all the opportunities, the genetic, the wonderful genetics that are around. We really aren't capitalising on that if we're going nowhere in terms of our key profit driver. And again, Jason showed similar data from lifetime ewe management. We've had about 400 or 500 farmers maternal farmers, as in maternal ewes, in that program. And the entrants, when they come into the program in those different years, there hasn't been a massive change in, I guess, their weaning rates. So we need to do something about it. Clearly something's wrong. We've got great genetics, but we're not really doing as well as one should. So where do we focus? And quite quickly, if you look at the value of increasing twin lamb survival by 10%, if we go from 60 to 70% survival in our twin lambs, we produce another 20 lambs per 100 ewes, don't we? Okay, 0.2 lambs per ewe at $73, about $14 or $15. What that's saying is that I can spend $14 or $15 per twin ewe to increase weaning rates by 10%, increase lamb survival by 10%, okay? That's what you can invest. You can pair that to focusing on the other end of the story, what the value of increasing scanning rates by 10, okay? And, the numbers are half to a fifth of that, okay? These are the dollars that you can invest to increase scanning rate by 10%, okay? Obviously, this is where the focus is, unless you've already got survival totally under control. When we went to farmers and we went to consultants to ask them, about this project and what they were confident with in terms of their maternal management and what they weren't. Okay, and a couple of things came out of that. One is that there was a massive range in the advice being what farmers' views were, and leading farmers at that, and also what the advice going to farmers were in general in terms of the optimum guidelines or optimum targets to manage maternal ewes during different stages of pregnancy. 2.3 to 3, for heaven's sake. That's pretty wide range. And what we also found for that process was lifetime ewe management. Anyone done lifetime ewe here? Okay, wow, fantastic. Maybe you'll be scared after you hear this. What we heard from that process was that 50% of the deliverers were using merino guidelines, okay, and 50% were making them up. Now, I mean that in the nicest possible way. They were using their own judgment to come up with optimum recommendations, but in the absence of good, I guess, credible evidence to support that. Okay, it was their experience. So 50% were using merino, the optimum way to manage a merino, and 50% were making it up. again, emphasise that we had something was missing here, and that was the opportunity for the project. What the project's about was there's really two. If we want to duplicate what we did in the Merino job, what's the information we need to put recommendations together on how you should manage your ewes? There's two steps to it. One is we need to define what the pasture levels and what the supplement levels are to achieve different live weight targets. If I want to maintain my ewes, how much feed do I need? Okay, that's pretty obvious, and what's coming out of there already, and many of you are, I'm sure, maternal, and if you've had merinos as well or had some experience with merinos, they're a different beast, okay? Certainly not at the stage of providing firm recommendations on that, but I do suspect that the levels of feed on offer required to maintain a maternal in late pregnancy could be, 2/3 of what a merino requires. So the guidelines, a merino guideline is just not going to be applicable, okay? You may have learnt that yourself, but we're trying to fine-tune that and put some solid numbers around it. That's one part of the jigsaw. The other is to define the responses. And what I mean there is that if you manage a ewe like this and she loses 10 kilos or whatever, what's that mean in terms of her mortality? What's it mean in terms of birth weights? What's it mean in terms of survival, lamb growth rates, carryover reproduction? I think they're about all the things that could be affected. I guess obviously, there's wool in the system too, but less important in this case. Okay, so once you've defined what all those production responses are to essentially different nutrition, then you can go into a modelling economic phase, and we can use the modelling process to develop optimum guidelines or condition score targets for different stages of pregnancy and lactation for different production systems and environments. That's the process we're going through. We're about, we're in amongst this at this point, being about 12 or 15 months into the project. It is a large national project with 4 main research sites, two in Western Victoria, in southeast South Australia, and in Mount Barker in WA. And David Slade's in the audience. I'd certainly like to thank David publicly for his contribution to this project. It's a very large. There's wide range in the animals we're using, composites and 1 BLM for a start. Wide range in the mature weights of these animals, diversity in the ewe types, which is quite important to recognise. And they are significant research activities. About 1,000 or up to 1,000 pregnant ewes at each of the sites. So it's a major activity. How we've got to where we've got. So what did we do in the first year, 2014? Basically, at each of the sites, joining or natural joining or AI, at day 50 or 60 of pregnancy, so we go in and scan multiple times to try to identify ewes that conceived over a relatively short period. The ewes are then allocated into different nutritional treatments, and the treatments are basically to achieve condition score 2.4, 2.8, 3.2, 3.6 at lambing. Okay, so day 50 or 60, they split. Okay, and they go all in different pathways through over that next 90 odd days into lambing, and it's just there to create a range. It's all about just trying to get some really thin ewes, some really fat ewes, and everything in between. Okay, so we can start to understand these production responses. An important point was that these nutritional treatments continued beyond day 140, and in fact until the last lamb was born, or even a couple of weeks after that. Okay, the focus in this first year was really about what is the effect of live weight profile or condition score profile change in pregnancy on birth weights and survival. Okay, that was the primary focus. So these guys, not only were they skinny ewes, they generally had less pasture available during the lambing process and for the first couple of weeks of lactation as well. These guys were fat ewes, obviously, and had more pasture during lambing in the first few weeks. After that, when the lambs were about 10 to 20 days old, they were all bulked up and run together thereafter. The ewes were run together until the following scanning, whatever it is, 6 months later. What do we do? I guess just to paint the picture a little bit more. So I'm just going to focus on 3. This is the 3 composite sites for the purpose of this presentation. So what we had at lambing, at joining, around 3.3. That was the condition scores. And what did we get at lambing? These guys were 2.6. Okay, so whatever it is, 0.7 of a condition score. We stripped off them. these were 3.7. So, you know, a good condition score range, a 1 condition score range at Pigeon Ponds, you know, more than 1 condition score at Hamilton, you know, nearly 1.5 at David's site. So just getting that range, but just to give you a bit of a picture of what happened to get to the data that I'll now proceed to show you. So what did it mean for birth weights? And as I've said in the earlier presentations, I don't think I've given a talk for 10 years where I've put statistics on a presentation for farmers, but I thought it was important to show that, I mean, sometimes there's differences that you might think are there and they aren't. You know, it's chance. So that's really the reason why I've used statistics on this occasion. But really, what's it mean? Across that spectrum of nutritional regimes, we changed lamb birth weight by or single lamb birth weight by about half a kilo. Okay, so 5.5 to 6 you can read as well as I can, but you know 0.5, 0.6 of a kilo is what happened to lamb birth weights across the spectrum. With twins, again, significant effects of nutritional treatments in all cases. You know, 0.5, 0.8, 0.9. You might argue they're a little bit bigger in twins, but you know we shifted birth weights, which was a good as expected, but a good start. And you might be thinking, well, tell me something different. What the purpose of that was is so that these results, the treatments we've set up they're just an experimental model. What we do then is we relate on an individual animal basis how the relationships between live weight change and birth weight, or live weight change and weaning weight, or live weight change and survival, whatever. It's just about the treatments are there just to create the diversity. Because then we go to the response curves, and these are the coefficients which come out of that process, and I'll explain them. At Pigeon Ponds, if ewes were 10 kilos heavier at joining, their lambs were 0.36 of a kilo heavier. Okay, so big ewes had big lambs. That makes sense, and that's evident, you know, across all the sites. These are the interesting ones. If ewes, let's say, gained 10 kilos between day 0 and 90 at Pigeon Ponds, their lambs were 0.43 of a kilo heavier. Okay. Or if they did that in late pregnancy, you know, they were nearly 0.6 of a kilo heavier, okay? So as I said, so these results are transferable to situations outside the spectrum of what we used. That's why we need to generate these or do the analysis this way. What's it mean? These responses here are not that different to merinos, okay? The lifetime wool data, which you would have seen through your lifetime ewe experiences, you know, the numbers are about 0.33 and 0.45, okay? So the story is not that different. So we change birth weight by a similar magnitude by manipulating live weight in maternals as we do in merinos. The other bit which has come out of it, so this is just shown graphically for Hamilton and Mount Barker. So basically singles, twins and triples, okay? So for every 10 kilo change, we change birth weight, Hamilton, by nearly half a kilo. Interestingly, the responses are exactly the same for for each birth type at all sites. Okay, so what I'm saying there is the lines are just parallel. So the effects of manipulating nutrition on a twin ewe or a triple ewe or a single ewe is exactly the same. You change the birth weight of the lambs by the same magnitude, irrespective of how many lambs they are having. What's it mean for survival? Okay, so let's get to maybe a slightly bit more interesting. In the single lambs, no significant effect, at least, at any of the sites. Okay, so a couple of important points is the target at Pigeon Ponds was 2.4. The actual, what they achieved was 2.7 in that case, 2.5, 2.5. So sometimes the actual was a little bit different from the target. Okay. But basically, no effect across those that range from very skinny or skinny to very fat ewes. The possible exceptions are these two, the two top sites here. It does, there is a hint here that over fat ewes, survival was compromised in the singles, and that would certainly be supported by what we found at David's site. We also had 3 or 4% ewe mortality out here. About 1%, 1 to 2% back here. Okay, so there is a case there for overfeeding singles and leading to higher mortality. What about twins? I think clear cut, no debate. Okay, at all sites, better nutrition, improve the survival of twin lambs. 76 to 85 at Pigeon Ponds. I guess the standout in this result, and many others that I'll subsequently show you, is that the responses are quite a bit bigger at Hamilton than the others. So at Hamilton, 69 to 91. Just get this in perspective. What's that? It's 138% weaning rate versus 182. Okay, that's survival of twin lambs. So these used at 138%. These used at 182. Okay, so quite big effects, particularly at Hamilton. Even here at David's site, what's that? 166 versus 182. That's still the numbers. Got to double them basically. Can I just put two? You'll get that in 2 slides. No, good question. Okay, I will get there in a jiff because it's a very relevant point. Lamb survival responses, because again, this is the sort of information we need to go into our modelling. They're generally quite similar across the sites, more so at some sites than others. Interestingly, no effect of birth type in particular. But what I mean there, and again, I come back to your lifetime ewe manuals, with Merino, you would have seen another curve below this. Okay. Merino twins die because they're lighter, okay, and because they're a twin, okay? And that's not the case this is across 4,500 lambs, okay? With maternals, there's basically twins die because they're lighter, they're on this part of the curve, and singles are on this part of the curve. There's no additional penalty for being a twin, okay? That's interesting. What we've also picking out is trying to explain, I was just trying to really get a head around why Hamilton's a bit different. There could be many reasons. But I started thinking about what's the critical birth weight? Where do things start to go wrong? Okay, what's this pointy part of the curve? Given we've got genotypes from 55 to 68 kilos. And what jumped out of that, which is quite interesting, is talking about this critical birth weight. That's what I'm calling it at the minute, which is about 95% of maximum survival. It was about 7.5% or thereabouts for all the different ewe types. Okay, that was where once birth weights dropped below 7.5% of mature ewe size, that's when we got on the slippery part of the curve. Okay, so I think that's significant. I'm just trying, but how significant I'm still to fully understand. But interestingly, at Hamilton, where the effects were very clear cut, 60% of twin lambs were below the critical weight. You go to David's site, 30% were below the critical weight. Okay, so in some respects, a mean birth weight can be a little bit misleading. It's the distribution in birth weights which also counts, and I think that's coming into what we're observing between sites. Let's get to the gentleman's question over here. What's it all mean in the context that it's still early days? I've just simply rolled this out to talk weaning rates rather than survival, okay? So these are the overall weaning rates at the different sites. And I think your question is exactly this, okay? If we are to take some messages away from this, okay, I think one is this, is that if I wasn't scanning, if I was one of the 80% of maternal producers who wasn't scanning for multiples, I would be managing my ewes for around condition score 3.2, okay? Because, as you say, it takes a massive effort to go from here to here. I mean, these are either the maximum anyway, overall, if I wasn't scanning, okay? Or it just costs a fortune to go to there. I mean, indeed, it cost about 30 to 40 kilos of barley at the Hamilton site to go from there to there, okay? So your point's correct. So if I wasn't scanning, that's where I'd be managing, okay, around that 3.2. What if I was scanning? I think what stands out of this data is that where was the maximum weaning rates for singles and twins? Clearly, it's at the low end for the singles. Okay, it's in these 2.5s to 2.8s. Okay, where was it for twins? It's in the fat ones. Okay, but there's no difference there. There's not much there, not much there, and so maybe I could fine tune that a little bit more. If I'm to say what do I go away from this with right now, I would say my twins 3.2, 3.3, something like that. I don't think you'll go too far wrong. Okay. What I'm less comfortable about is saying how far can you go down this way with your singles. Okay, certainly not going there suggesting 2.5 or something like that. Okay, we just need far more data, understand, I mean, you'll see some of the longer term impacts in a minute. if I had to give you a number, maybe 2.8 to 3, I'd be in that zone right now for singles, but we'll fine tune that. So what's it saying to me so far? Not a bad start. Predictable impacts of manipulating live weight profile on birth weights of the lambs. That's one tick we get. Minimal effects of low condition score at lambing, 2.5 to 2.7 on survival of singles, but a possible effect of being over fat. Improving condition score at lambing increases survival of twins, and I think we're near maximum at around that 3.2. Okay, so wrapping it all up, I think there's scope to differentially manage and improve survival of singles by around 5 to 8%, and twins, the scope's huge. 10 to 30 or 20 to 60 lambs per ewe. 6 per 100 ewes. Okay, I said it in the introduction. It's all about managing twins. Okay, and I guess this project, or thus far, isn't deviating from that, and that's certainly the focus we've got going forward. You might be sitting there saying, "Well, tell me something different." I think maybe there'll be something a little bit more that you might be a little bit more surprised by a couple of the results I might now put in front of you. And we'll start off by looking at weaning weights. And interestingly, across that spectrum for single lambs, there was no significant effect of, lambing in 2.5 or 4. There was no significant effect on weaning weights at Pigeon Ponds and Mount Barker. Okay? Whereas at the Hamilton site, again, and this will come out, as I said already a number of times, a very clear effect. Okay? And we're racking our head as what's gone on at Hamilton. Could, different genotype, of course. I have a few other explanations which I'll come up with in a jiff.
Was it all the same plan on offer?
I'll come again. You're 2 slides ahead of me. Let's look at twins. Okay, so what we see in twins, again at Pigeon Ponds, no significant effect on weaning weights of the twins. I said they were 2.7, didn't I? These are 2.36, 2.3 versus 3.7. And, there's not much. But between the twins at Pigeon Ponds, there is a bit at David's site, not much, and clear as a bell at Hamilton. So as I just make the point. Coming back to your question, what I'll present now, because it's broke. Remember the lambs? There was a point in time where they were combined. Okay, so up until that point in time, day 10, when they were 10 or 20 days old, yes, there was different food levels. After that, they were all on the same. When they were all on the same, this is their growth rates. Okay, so when all the flocks were combined, irrespective of their condition scores at lambing, this is what happened. 0 effect on growth rates of singles at Pigeon Ponds. No effect on growth rates at Mount Barker, and again seeing something at Hamilton. What happened in the twins? Zip. Okay? So no, despite those, very large differences in ewe condition score at lambing, once everything was combined when the lambs were 10 to 20 days old, there was no carryover effect on growth rates in the main between those different condition scores.
I would have thought there would have been with a fatty ewe, wouldn't she give an additional?
So no. Well, long term, no. So you're probably saying that, well, why are there differences in weaning weights? Okay, so what you're seeing in weaning weights is 2 things. One is there's an effect on birth weight. Okay, that's only half a kilo of it. But we obviously got differences in growth rate in that up to the 10 or 20 days when they were combined. Okay, so I'm very confident to say, and I'm still working on a few people to believe me, but it's reasonably clear cut to me that there is no longer term impact, or very little. Okay, but most of what we're seeing in weaning weights was because of those early differences. So I think that means a couple of. So what we're seeing is really an appetite. I think those skinny ewes, and again it reflects in their own condition scores. Their intake capacity must be enormous. Because we'll see they've gained half a condition score to lactation, and their lambs aren't compromised long term. So I can only put it down. Yes, their maintenance requirements be wound down a bit, but they're mainly achieving that through just huge intakes. We're not quite finished with that, I don't think. How am I going, Rich? Okay, mate. So summary of I'm doing okay. Lamb growth rates, and 3 times and you kind of get it right. Lamb growth rates and weaning weights, minimal effect of ewe condition score at lambing on growth rates after marking or when they were combined, when they were run in common. Okay, with the exception of single lambs at Hamilton. So something's going on there. I don't know if you picked it up or not, but the lamb growth rates at Mount Barker and at Pigeon Ponds were significantly higher than Hamilton. Okay, I think in one case we're talking 200 grams versus 350 plus. So, and a feature of the Hamilton site, yes, different genotype, crappy weather, etc. But they also, the pastures weren't brilliant. Okay, and that reflects in those growth rates. And as we all know, if animals are to compensate, they need to have the feed there to be able to compensate. Okay, so I wonder if that's related as well as to why that Hamilton site's standing out. Impacts of low condition score treatments on weaning weights, mostly attributed to impacts of birth weights and that feed on offer differences in that early. In some way, it's a reflection of the experimental model we had. This is the interesting bit, and this is where we've gone to this year. Okay, all 4 sites have kept going for a second year. The question is around, can the impacts of poor nutrition in utero and in early life, those couple of weeks, be mitigated or overcome by having high feed on offer levels during lactation? But, I mean, to be a bit more specific, we're asking the question, if I had skinny ewes, you know, a couple of weeks out from lambing, can I put them onto, or how much pasture do I need to put them onto for 1, 2, 3 weeks prior to lambing to cancel out the negative effects we've seen on birth weights, okay, and any subsequent growth rates, okay? So hopefully we'll be able to say, okay, if you've got ewes in 2.6 and if you put them on 1,500 kilos for 3 weeks, you're fine. You know, you'll achieve exactly the same birth weights and growth rates and survival as had you had them in whatever condition score. Okay, that's where so there's some quite substantial gaps we're hoping to fill this next year. I'll wrap it up, Rich. There's scope to improve or reallocate feed, as I've been through. We really need to keep an eye on. I'd welcome you sort of to keep an interest in this project and see what comes out of this year and the guidelines arising. I've really touched on this a bit already. And the questions are around, can low condition score at lambing can have negative effects on lamb growth rates and carryover regrowth, but can these be manageable by different food levels? What I didn't mention is the carryover reproduction. That's really critical, and that's a little bit inconsistent. We've seen a negative effect of being skinny on subsequent reproduction at one site and nothing at another site, and not clear at the third site. Okay, so I haven't put that up today just for the sake of time. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Andrew.
The question is, have we done much this in maidens? And the answer is not normal maidens, but in ewe lambs, yes. We've done a lot of the front end work. You know, getting them pregnant was presented over here by Andrew Kennedy earlier. We've just got a new project funded by Richard and Renell, is really to try to draw on a lot of data out of New Zealand and industry data. Cashmore involved, for example, getting to try to get this from industry data sets where they've measured live weights through pregnancy, measured birth weights, measured survival. We're hoping we'll be able to come up with this without the $1 million price tag. Okay, so we'll be able to.
You think of as singles made Cystopia.
Yep, look, I've looked at some data in the last 48 hours, and one data set was, Cashmore data set was not seeing that real classic tip over. The New Zealand data set, 10,000 data points, it's horrid. You know, anything over 4.5 kilos, it was almost straight down. So, yes, look, we're trying to get better information on, so we can do exactly this, I guess, without doing the projects. I hope that answers the question well enough. So again, that's a pretty quick thing. That's middle of next year. Hopefully we'll have not only the answers to that question, but also basically a tool to be out for a merino maternal producer to say, these are my genetics if you know them. These are the live weights of my ewes at joining time. Do I join these, not these, and then how do I manage them through pregnancy to get best effect?
Okay, question from John. Triplets.
Yeah, look, a shame, John, that we didn't. That was, again, one of the initial objectives. We just didn't get the numbers at least 3 of our sites. We should partly answer the question because of the Hamilton site had a reasonable number of triplets, and the survival went from 41 to 80 across that. If I'd put it up there, 41 on the skinny ones and stuff. So, I'm happy to discuss the triplet story, which we know, but it's certainly an area that's lacking just because it just didn't happen that way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to be that. Yep.
Further question for Andrew? Go and go on the chef.
Oh, I did get my time under control after 3 goes.
John?
Do you think we're good enough to condition score staff between 3 and 3.2?
Say that again.
Are people good enough to condition score between 3 and 3.2?
The question is, are people good enough to score between 3 and 3.2? I'll toss back to you. You've done lifetime U, a lot of you. Look, my answer is yes, but I think so, but I think the answer is it's you need to know. I mean, whether 3.3, 3.2, I'd say 2.8 versus 3 is more important than 3 versus 3.2. But I think we do need to be. I don't care what happens above, 3.5. But I think that whether it be 0.2, 0.3, I think that's a very useful skill to be down to that sort of resolution.